Good afternoon, everyone. So today we're going to discuss an interesting topic that came up in an article recently about how China is trying to future-proof its energy requirements through the use of solar capacity. Raga, with you heading the information department and also being our China expert, could you actually shed some light on this and how this works and give us some more context on what energy in the future will look like?
Sure, Uday. Happy to give my thoughts. So imagine running a country of over a billion people and one that must keep its economy growing, its air breathable, and its citizens alive in a heating world. So that's the challenge China faces, and it's doing so with a government that's backed with science-based um, data, backed by engineers and scientists. So around 40% of the Chinese Communist Party's committee has technical backgrounds, which is quite divergence from a lot of world governments if you see. So a lot of them occupy positions
Right.
from aerospace to artificial intelligence. And meritocracy is very much at the root and core of the party and a lot of its committees. And that is the technocratic mindset that has shaped one of its most consequential transformations in global energy. So we see the rise of solar power. Today, China produces the vast majority of the world's solar cells. It has installed nearly half of all the solar capacity on Earth. It's about 900 gigawatts as of 2024, I believe. And
Wow.
that, yeah, and that thanks to the massive scale, the cost of solar electricity has plummeted to about 4 cents per kilowatt hour, which is the cheapest energy source in history. And of course, not everyone's cheering. So it was just last year that you had the then Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who accused China of unfair competition, saying that cheap solar exports were hurting American workers. And Europe's also investigating whether China's subsidies have distorted the market. Now, the question is, what good is fair competition if the planet itself becomes unlivable, right? Because Western governments talk about climate goals, but
Yep.
very few are actually meeting them. So,
Yep. All the
yeah,
COP conferences where we've kept missing the mark, but we still
yeah,
have them.
yeah, exactly. You see, like Germany, which was once a solar pioneer, it ceded its manufacturing edge to China after cutting subsidies a few years ago. It still installs plenty of panels, but 95% of them come from Chinese factories. The European Union now leans on its carbon pricing system, the EU emissions trading scheme, that's a system where carbon costs about $80 a ton, which is far below the real social cost of pollution. And you have the United States, which swings between progress and regression. Biden had this Inflation Reduction Act, which was pushed for cheap hydrogen and renewables. And then Trump reversed course, of course, because he doesn't quite believe in global warming. So he slapped tariffs and cut subsidies for what he calls unreliable energy. So there's been a lot of seesawing about the solar energy and its programs
Right.
when it comes to the West. So the irony is very deep and sharp because China is often criticized for authoritarianism, but it's actually making a lot of pragmatic, science-based decisions. And the West, which is supposedly the home of free markets and innovation, is mired in ideological gridlock. So, whether we debate whether solar cells are being fairly priced, China is building the future. So, yeah, China's dominance raises some concerns of over reliance and labor practices and perhaps even geopolitical leverage. But from a planetary standpoint, cheap solar power is a net good for all. It is building the cost curve of clean energy for everyone. And the West may still lead through innovation and quality and modernization, but it cannot pretend that the sun should obey trade rules. It can't be free trade until it only benefits the West. So, in the end, it's not about moral virtue or perfect markets, which will save us from climate catastrophe, of course. It's just the raw economic reality, which is that solar, thanks to China, is just simply too cheap to ignore today. So that's the irony of our age. The country, China, which is often painted as a villain, might be lighting the way towards a sustainable future. So those are my thoughts, Uday, on China and it paving the path ahead for solar energy.
Thanks a lot, Raga. I really like that lighting the way ahead. Um, but that was very interesting, and it is of concern to, I mean, the West, Europe, and Asia, or Africa and Latin America also. Um, Climate change doesn't discriminate. So we are all going to be in this situation. And as you're saying, China is leading the way ahead. So that was quite interesting. Thanks a lot, Raga, for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Uday.